Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health Mondays. I am so stoked. I'm already cracking up because I had to hit record because I'm already catching up with I don't want to say old friend, but a classic friend and coworker. Somebody that helped me get my sanity when I was working as a car sales manager in Northern California. And she is somebody that lives a life fired up. I am talking about, now she no longer lives in California, but there's always a place in my heart for my guest at this time, Sara Foss. Sara!
Thank you. Hi. Yeah!
Fired up.
That's like my soundtrack. Like anytime I walk into a room, there's just some type of California beat dropping.
Entrance music. You just come on in.
I love it. I just see walked in. That's what we used to do in the corporate office, right?
Oh yeah, you come in and we're fired up.
You used to come over every day and try to convince me to go sell cars with you.
Oh, I was dying to get you. Because you were the perfect personality. I mean, who wouldn't buy a car from you?
You know, it's so weird. I've thought, obviously when you do sales for a career, and it's funny, we both moved out of state, like we don't do sales anymore.
Yeah.
But you never really lose that mentality, And so I think about it all the time, and it's just like, it's a God-given gift to just be able to make a connection with someone right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a salesperson, you're not hustling someone, you're just educating them, right? And so I really, my sales career background really has helped me in my life in every aspect. Like everything's negotiable, every relationship, there's give and take, and when someone tells me that they do sales, I get really quiet and I just like to listen and observe because I'm learning.
It's so funny. It's like we've seen behind the curtain. We know the stuff, and then when we see it done to us, or we see the other side, we're kind of like, okay. It's similar to like in customer service, when if you've worked in customer service, when you then go out to a restaurant or you go somewhere, I feel like I'm much more sympathetic to people that work in customer service, but I also know when there was not like, oh, they should have done this instead.
Yeah.
There was this.
No, I agree 100%.
But
I do judge people. Like when people knock on my door, I'm like, you better sell me this Mormon religion.
Yeah. Do you take the time? Do you go like, all right.
Yeah. Well, depending on my mood. Depending on my mood. But I definitely do.
Do they bust out the Ben Franklin on you?
Yeah. I'm like, you're doing the assertive close. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
See, we have on this side, we have polygamy. We have, Utah. We have.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm like inviting them to dinner, and then they're like, no, your house is on the do not come to list.
Or you go, which religion do you prefer? Circle on this document.
Yeah. Circle by the X that's highlighted.
Circle where on this document. You leave the pen right there.
Yeah.
So many, and like you said, all of the things that we learned, and like not just learn training, but I think much more hands-on, has helped me. Has helped you. Has helped both of us in our future careers. I became an elementary school teacher, but like none of the kids could get over on me. Like it was like.
And you're not allowed, what else is, because I actually taught school for a year when I first graduated from college.
Mm-hmm.
It was at a Catholic school and I got knocked up before I was married, but that's a whole nother episode. Okay. So it was very short-lived, and I should have probably been like a juvenile PO or something. My gifts lie elsewhere than in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But something that's very similar about that, and sales in your career now, is that you're not allowed to have a bad day.
Mm-mm. No.
You gotta
be bad days.
You gotta be fired the fuck up every.
You gotta be fired up every morning.
Yeah. Do you ask your students if they're fired up? Do they get? Yeah. Do you guys get fired up?
We did. Now, the thing is, you can't fake it either. Like I can't go in there and do the lobotomized smile and go, "We're gonna have a great day today. I'm excited."
What
I
grade?
haven't had any coffee, and I'm about to kill myself.
What grade do you teach right now?
Third grade.
Third.
I did fourth grade for a couple years. I did second grade, but third grade I love because they're right at that age where they're really starting to become their personality. And I want to catch them right there because I want them. My main thing is I want to develop critical thinkers. Right. Because I feel like in society now we have too much tribalism. We have too many people that are just like making up their mind before they really understand stuff, and it goes for a lot of things. And I feel like kind of like, you know, scientific investigation where your hypothesis is not you. So like if your hypothesis is that that Coca-Cola, it has more fizz than Pepsi or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, then if you prove that it's wrong, that doesn't make you wrong. But I feel like a lot of people that get emotionally invested in an opinion or a belief, and then when new data comes along that counters that, it's making them feel like I have to change myself.
Like like my entire generation, anyone that's parenting right now with
right.
You know.
So speaking of, how do you keep your again, we were talking before we started recording that like this, it's been 20 years since you and I were first fired up.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's life to me is like in different eras or lifetimes, right? It's like that. There's our ERAC days. Those were really, really fun. God, I just was wild back then. I was a little more carefree, you know, in my 20s and early 30s.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm trying to think because it has been that long, because I was just sharing before we started recording, like my kids are grown and they were nuggets. They were little babies when we met. And I just remember having to go in and buy a car when I got divorced. And so, yeah, now they're 22 and 20. So it's been somewhere probably between 15 and 20 years. And then it's wild just parenting. You see kids every day. I feel like our generation, I was advised to go to college. I don't really feel like I had I didn't really have a choice. I mean, I did, but my mom's like, hey, if you go to college, I'll help you financially. And if not, you're on your own. So obviously I extended my youth. Yeah, that was the best decision for me. But nowadays, you know, it's kind of like all the kids that are around the age of my kids, they're not feeding into all of this bullshit. We just were outside. We were partying. The 90s were lit. Like we didn't even question anything. We just went with it. This generation is like, no, we're not doing that. And so I have learned a lot. My son is very radical. So really? It was very, I mean, there were years where I fought with him and said, listen, it's 1995 in this house. Like it is.
Yes.
But now that he's gotten older, I've gotten a little bit older. Yeah, I've definitely learned from him. This entire generation, they don't, for example, romantic love for us, that was the pinnacle. We came up in the 90s, right?
Oh,
the 90s R&B gave us unrealistic romantic relationships. These kids, they don't even like date. They just go on Tinder and link up, and like they have their friends, they have their internet communities where they get their intimacy and fulfillment from. So I'm old school. I'm Irish Catholic, and it is 1995 in this house, right? That intro beat is what plays every day,
right?
But there's also something to learn from the next generation. So I commend you for working with third graders and like already instilling becoming a critical thinker, because that's what we need in this country right now.
And thank you for saying it, because it's tough because like you said, I try to stay open. I try to still be a student of current events and whatnot. And now I try really hard not to be like Steve Buscemi and what's up, fellow kids, you know, no cap, dab, you know, but sometimes I'll say,
what's up, bruh?
Yeah, bruh. Bruh. But one of the cool things though, too, I learned is like kids want to be talked to as people, not down to.
Yes.
And I pride myself on being one of those teachers that the kids respond to. And like I've actually had one of my students called me bruh, and then she caught herself and she realized like she called the teacher bruh, And I just started laughing because to me that actually was endearing because it meant that I was relating to her. But it was I like to we like to do the experiments and I like to get them to think and challenge them and on a lot of things. But the thing I noticed, especially with the pandemic and with a lot of other stuff, is the last few generations, or not generations, last few ages.
Yeah.
They're becoming a lot less. They're very tech savvy, but they're also very they don't have as many coping skills as we did.
1000%.
You know what I mean?
It's just different.
Yeah.
I remember as a child being told get out on a Saturday. I was gone at 8 a.m. I didn't come back till 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just like the lessons in life were faster, harder, and we just had to deal with it. And these kids now, yeah, I'm so protective over my kids, more so over my daughters. I know I'm terrible. I'm one of those like old school kind of like, I'm like, well, he can't get pregnant and he never got pregnant, so that's good, but neither did my girls. But I just remember how bad I was at such a young age. And thank God my kids don't even really party. They're just, I live with the Big Lebowski. I mean, we call him the guru. He just walks around high all day in a robe and plays video games. But I'm like, you know what? As long as you pay your rent on time, I don't care.
Right.
And back when I was young, I don't know if it was like this for you too, but I was told like you're out when you're 18. Like I was gone. And now I'm just like, I don't care if they leave. Because I'm a single mom. Like, what am I? I'm not married. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, what am I? I have no life. My youngest is 13. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Right? Like, talking about mental health. Like, yeah, here you are. I have this whole life set up. I was married. Everything was great. And then he dies. And then I'm all, what the fuck? Let's be depressed for 10 years while we get our life back together.
Right.
How's that for a coping skill?
Right. Exactly.
And go to work and be fired up. It's like, so life is so crazy, man.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I do want to touch on that because losing a loved one that you not just a loved one that you care about, but one that you build a life around, that's a partner. It's when you lose that, it's you're losing part of yourself. I'm sure and yet you with kids and with work and things that all the have tos that you have to do. How do you find time to grieve? And I mean, does it take a long time? I mean, or is it something that you never fully recover from, or how do you work through that?
Man, so it's different for every person. And I'm a huge advocate of telling anyone that's grieving, you tell someone to fuck off if they tell you you're not grieving, right? Just because it's so personal, like a health journey, right?
Yeah.
For me, looking back, I stayed in the grief too long. And so I was a functioning depressed person. I drank a lot immediately after, and we used to drink a lot together, before Eric passed away. But I drank pretty heavily every weekend for like 6 months, and then I was just at a strip club in Portland one night, and I was like, "This is not fun anymore." So I get fired up, right? There's all or nothing for me. So I went from partying, going on dating apps. I hadn't been single forever, just using distraction. So it probably took me a while to really start handling the grief.
Yeah.
But as a mom, something I'm proud of, and this is what, you feel almost like a ministry when somebody dies now young, especially when they become a widow. I find myself reaching out to people.
Yeah.
And so my advice is always, you need to immediately get into grief counseling. So when Eric passed, it was a Thursday. I was in my PCP's office the next week. And I said, listen, my husband just died. I've got 3 children at home. And at the time they were 14, 12, and 4. I'm the sole provider. There was no life insurance. Like I'm a hustler. I have to keep going.
Yeah.
So I need something mild. So she put me on Lexapro. And then I immediately started grief counseling. And 2 years into grief counseling, my counselor moved away. Her dude actually got a job at the Pentagon. Isn't that in Virginia?
Wow, yeah.
It's like a rocket scientist or something. But I remember her closing words to me were, "You can live here forever." or you can move on with your life. And so I lasted a little bit longer than I should have, but it's
Mm-hmm.
such and men and women grieve differently as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I just lost a really good friend of mine really young at 38 unexpectedly, and
Wow.
she was just in January. And we did the service last month. I went up, I helped do the service. Her widower is doing so well. It's interesting, just as a man, like kind of watching him grieve. He immediately got into counseling, got his kid into counseling. He's doing wonderful. But men compartmentalize a little bit differently.
Mm.
So it's like you can go to work, right? You can deal with your mental health shit when you get home. But for women, it's like, oh, I have to go take a break and cry in the bathroom for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. But that's why me and I got really lucky, because while I'm still single and it's been 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be remarried, but that just hasn't happened for me yet. I have had I've had a few amazing girlfriends come into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, I also moved states. So I'm like, here's this girl born and raised in San Francisco, like so Cali, so 1994, living in a suburb in Oregon. Like,
what happened? How'd this happen?
I'm trying to fire up this whole community, man. Like, I'm like, dude, we have some fun, but I kind of stick out like a sore thumb. But that's okay. So we started our podcast, WID-HOES,
Yes.
where we do dabs and we talk about our dead husband and grieving, and then we talk about our dating adventures as hot, fat, older women that have no business being on an app.
That's awesome, though. That's such great content too, and you're representing all the WID-HOES out there.
Yes, but a lot of people go through. So it is funny. It's a real phenomenon. Like, if you meet a new widow, jump on it if you're single, because they can be going through their WID-HOE phase. I talk a good game, but unfortunately, that's all it is. I used to be in sales.
Right? Exactly. Right. Hey, and what product is the best product that you're selling yourself? You're like, hey, let me explain to you why. Here are my benefits.
Yeah. I'm going to incorporate that. I haven't done that yet, but I do find sometimes there were some first dates I went on where I was like, Sarah, you're not in a panel interview right now. You know what I mean? Because it's like, dude, you can see the or constantly reading the body language of people, which I love.
I do that too. And what about looking directly in the left eye?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Look directly in the left eye. I do that with the kids. I like when they come up to tell me something, I'll look directly in their left eye, and then like if they're lying to me, they start to.
You can tell. Do you do that on your wife too? Because you're married.
Maybe. I don't do any sales techniques on Deb at all.
Real, that is a damn lie. Yeah. Once the sale, I tell everyone everything is negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Yeah, you close that deal.
Right. Yeah. But that's so funny, because like you think about it too. Like when I'm interacting with people and I can't, something clicks and I just start I start thinking about, okay, all right, reading Bible language. Okay. That's the decision maker, even though that's the talker. I'm like,
yes. I feel like we have a one up on everyone we interact with. And when I watch movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, I'm like, oh, I've lived that minus the cocaine at lunch. It was just like drinks, right?
Yeah.
But it was just, I definitely feel like we know a secret language. And for me, life is about connecting with people, right? And there are certain people that, like you work with someone 20 years ago, and then like you talk to them, it's like we've been talking this whole time because you just like vibe with certain people. And that's what life is all about. So the Kuna Matata, man, full circle here.
Kuna Matata. Do you think Denise Dawson has ever forgiven me for constantly trying to get you to come over to car sales?
She was not a fan of mine, but Deanna Shat was.
Deanna, she was a queen.
She's great. She runs a concierge service for older people now.
Cool.
which is so cool. Like she literally found a niche and like created a business.
Hmm.
So people like us, right, our age now, unfortunately, our parents are getting older,
Yeah,
and you know, they, if you're looking to put your parents in managed care or whatever, she kind of coordinates that and helps that,
I
which
might
I
have to
think is so
reach out.
cool.
I might have to reach out. My
Yes.
my dad, he's retired military and he's in his upper 70s now, and he spends his time getting yelling at kids on Fortnite. This
Your
he's
dad is a fucking legend.
he plays Fortnite and he gets like he'll sit there and he'll get in there and he'll start like yeah, they'll call him camper because he likes to like slowly snipe kids. And
Dude.
like he's so funny just to listen to him talk about like. And what's so funny too is like other people his age like that they don't get it, like he'll start telling a
Right.
story and you're thinking, what was this in Nam, what
Yeah.
was he talking about? And then he says, and then I got the victory royale, and I'm like, and they're like,
you're
what?
you're like, Dad.
Dad.
Dude, my mom is retired and she wakes up and she just smokes weed all day long. So
Good for her.
she calls me like every day at like 9 a.m. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm fucking working. Like some of us have to work. We have a career, right?
And then you hear,
So dude, she's so great though. Like I just adore her. And we just had this discussion last week. She was like really harboring guilt, I think, like thinking she would be a burden because she's single. And I'm just like, I am a mom. I have never once like even thought about it like that. And I'm
yeah,
like, Ma, if I get remarried or something, whoever I'm with will have the same values as me. Like, I got you. I'll take care of you. Like, I'm not worried about it. And
mm-hmm.
I don't know why people don't want to go to homes. I want to retire. I want to go to home. You know, the biggest STD rates are in old people's homes
right?
because they can't get pregnant. They're
right?
out there going, they have salons. They go to free dinner. They're raw dogging each other. It's like, dude, use a condom. I didn't live my whole life to catch chlamydia at 80. But that generation there, which is so weird, is that being a widow or a widower, widow, like during the war was so much more prevalent.
mm-hmm.
So it's like our generation doesn't really know about it, but like during wartime and stuff like that, it was really common, which is interesting. Is your dad not married? Is he single?
No, he's married. He's married. But it's funny because they have a big house, and yet he spends 90% of his time in his office.
Like that's why they're happily married still, because she doesn't want to deal with his bullshit.
Exactly. And he doesn't deal with her bullshit. She doesn't deal with his bullshit.
I love it.
He's got his own fortress of solitude. He's got his 3D printer, his fish. He's got all his toys. He's got his big computer. He's got this giant, like he's got the gaming computer that you would, the stereotypical nerd living in his mom's basement is what my dad has.
Your dad is like my son's ultimate goal.
Oh,
he's probably friends with him on Fortnite.
They probably have the same gamer tag. Well, it was funny too. Is because sometimes I would go on just I would play in the same squad with my dad that you could do like a 4-person. And I remember I got on with him, and this they randomly will put people with you like this. So we randomly had 2 other people on our squad, and the one kid goes on the we're on the tech speak thing. And he goes, so what grade are you guys in? He said, what school do you guys go to? And my dad goes, I went to a school of hard knocks, kid.
You're like, I taught you in 3rd grade.
Yeah, I probably taught. And that's the thing. I had to really be careful. I didn't want my kids to know my gamer tag because, hey, last night, man, I pawned Mr. Burden last night, man. He was a camper. What a loser.
It's like being a cop. Like you can't. Do you teach in the city that you live in?
Yeah, and for a while the area too. Like I couldn't go to Kroger. I couldn't go to the grocery store. Like I remember I went to the grocery store and I have no shave. I'm just bumming. And I go and all of a sudden, Mr. Burden. And I go, oh no. And I turn and there's like, and immediately it's like it's instant parent teacher conference. And I'm just like, listen,
that's lame.
Let me get my donuts. Let me get my, my beer and donuts and just get out of here, please.
Yeah, that is like my worst nightmare. Like me being way too high, at Fred Meyer's and running into like a softball mom.
Yeah.
Usually, like if they're cool, I don't care. But I'm like, or someone from work. It's
Or
like,
do they start
God.
looking at what you're buying, like,
Oh yeah, don't judge me. I hate. You know what? I do that all the time, and I hate when people do that to me. But I'm guilty because I do.
Mhm.
I'm like, ugh. Especially like I won't even go to Trader Joe's because I can't deal with the people inside of there.
Oh,
I
yeah,
won't like. No, I'm at Winco. I'm not at Whole Foods. I can't afford that shit. I'm a
jeez.
single mom, and I tell my kids,
Exactly.
you know better. You know better than to ask for that. Like we're going to Winco,
Exactly.
and you're
Safeway all day long,
yeah, for sure. Do you have Safeway in Virginia?
We actually don't. We have Food Lion, we have Harris Teeter, we had Farm Fresh, but they went out. They had this Farm Fresh grocery store, the best fried chicken. There was
Really?
this there was this little old lady that had this like recipe, and it was the best fried chicken. I mean, literally, there'd be a line out the door
Yeah.
of people waiting to get an 8-piece, and they would you would see them have a fresh batch out, and by the time you got to the counter, they were out because they
Wow.
were cooking it for so long. But
Yeah.
then something happened. The owner, their CEO went bankrupt, lost at the track or something, and then so Farm Fresh went out, and they got bought by this other guy, and he fired the lady. The recipe was so different; it tasted like ass chicken.
What a
It was
dick.
terrible, and people were pissed. Like people would
Yeah.
show up to get the chicken, and they go, "This is dirt. It's nothing." So yeah, they ended up closing down. Now it's a Crunch Fitness.
It's like the Chinese food at the Novato Safeway.
Yeah. Oh, that's my Novato. Okay, trying to think, what was the name of the player? There were several go-to places.
There was that one Chinese restaurant that we always used to go to.
Oh.
So my favorite lunch was always the accountants. I don't know if you've ever gone out to lunch with them, but they're like the craziest group. They act all buttoned up, but they were wild.
I never. Oh, was that was
Maybe
Debbie
just like
Fair?
Admin. No, who? Michael, remember?
Yes. Okay.
Michael
Yeah.
Ferris. He was so funny. Yeah. ERAC days were lit, man. I have never drank and driven more than when I worked for Enterprise Rent a Car. Driving their cars home all trash after like
my goodness.
top. I'm sorry, we were top performers and we went to dinner every month.
What was it? What was this? Salinas? Was it Salinas? Where was it where we would have the dinner,
in Sausalito.
That's
when money was. It's so crazy. Like we were both obviously gone, like when GM buckled. But when we were there, it's like I was working with kids that were like 23 that were making $100,000 a year back then.
Right.
Yeah. And it was just like wild. Like we just got used to this lifestyle. And yeah, like we were the cool kids. I wasn't never really a cool kid, but I mean, I was kind of a dork until high school and then I became a cool kid. And then I just feel like, but yeah, it was always both of us. Like I said, we're top performers. So we were we were the chosen few.
We were. I will say this though, that I had to really work hard to repair the car sales rift in that building, because prior to me there, I think that the car sales team was like antagonistic with the rest of corporate, and it just but I think I think part of it was Doug Watt liked me, like because when I was because I came from rent, I transferred, but I was in rental and I did my time in rental in California before I came over. And he told me when they were recruiting for car sales, he said, "Hey, listen, if this doesn't pan out, let me know and I'll get you back in rental." And so I think he always kind of had a place for me, but there was always this stigma. Oh, your car sales.
Yeah.
So I always had to try to work through that. But like when Carlos came over to remarketing, and you remember Carlos?
Yeah. He was my DM for like forever. He was great, dude. Like some of those guys, I think that I excelled because I'm a guy's girl. So like I'm more comfortable rolling dice in a garage with like 10 dudes. That's just how growing up, I just wanted to be like respected. So I just like I don't know. I remember when I went into corporate sales, I went into Doug's office and I basically gave him this presentation on why I wanted a small SUV versus a full size car. And he laughed and he let me drive the Escape. He's like, fine, you can have it. And he told me, he was like, Sara, you don't ever leave sales. Like, he's like, you're so good at it, right? And so what do? I get fired for smoking weed.
that Weedgate was such a shocker.
The best part about Weedgate, I'm not going to talk about the lady who stitched me out, because clearly, like, karma, I'm sure, has come back to her 20-fold. Not a fan, but whatever. I thought it was funny. It was such a scandal. Total narc. It was such a scandal. I'm like, people are doing way worse on the East Bay corridor in the branches, but hey, whatever. But there's a God, I don't even want to say her name, but there was a very high, well-respected admin assistant who basically ran corporate. And when she left a piece of cheese in the narc's office, just to let her know that nobody liked her rat ass, I was just like, dude, thank you so much. And it's funny because I left that job, sign a bunch of shit that I wouldn't sue them or whatever. Took a severance package. Like, they took decent care of me. And then I went to work for Comcast Business, which was terrible.
Oh, wow.
It was horrible. I mean, I made a lot of money, like, because it was, and it's funny because speaking of car sales, Dan Zamora went the same route. I remember thinking, like, dude, you're going to hate it. Because if you were really good at ERAC back in the day, like, we only worked a couple days a week. Like, we kind of just dicked off and had a good time. And as long as your numbers are good, who cares? But then, like, you had to, like, actually bust your ass. It's like, I'm not walking door to door. This is wild. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, screw that.
Sales is hard because you're only as good as your last sale.
Your last sale, exactly.
I am randomly a workers' comp examiner now, and I don't, it's funny. I'm licensed in Oregon and Washington. I prefer Washington. That's where I learned, and it's a harder jurisdiction. So, but it's so up and down, and it's so, like, you're constantly reprioritizing, putting out fires. And so that adrenaline rush is there, right? Any corporate job, you're playing a game. But it really has helped me because I'm able to connect with people right away, which is what I want to do. I want to take care of them. Although I've been doing this so long that most of my injured workers are represented. So I can't even talk to them. But it's funny because my sales background coupled with my career now, I talk to doctors all day. I talk to lawyers. Like, I mean, obviously you got to know your audience, but I treat a crackhead with the same respect as I treat a CEO. And so it's interesting. Those are the people I think that are the most fulfilled and the most successful. And I'm sure you teach that to your nuggets on a daily, right? Yeah. It's like, you never know who you're talking to.
And that's something I see a lot of times too. And I see good examples and bad examples, talking to the custodian, just like you're talking to, anybody else. And it's a lot of times, like, you'll get some of my coworkers will almost be like, well, we'll get the custodians to do that. Like, they get an attitude, or they there's a hierarchy. And I hate that. And that's one thing that did drive me nuts in a lot of different jobs, is when there was like a social hierarchy based on the job. And I'm like, bitch, you and I were colleagues like last month, and now you're promoted. Exactly. And suddenly you forgot all that time I held your hair back when you're puking out the Escape. But
after a top performer dinner.
Yeah, exactly. That was interesting. I'm lever to pieces, but I had a coworker that got promoted at car sales, and the day she got promoted, she turned into a raging bitch.
Wow.
And it was weird because, like, the day before, we went and got Yo Sushi at Fairfield, and we're yucking it up, and we're just you're joking around, and it's just like we had a rapport. And then she goes to corporate. They tell her she's promoted. She comes back and she's bitching about we got to clean the leaves off the corner over here, and we got to do this. And I'm like, it's Fairfield. I mean, we're next to Yo Sushi. I don't think that we're going. I don't think we're not going to be like, you know, the Mercedes dealership,
Yes.
here.
Yes.
But it was weird. Now, granted, we got along
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, but it was weird to see how sometimes power corrupts a little bit, or almost like, you know, do you think it's that it corrupts, or is it that when you're promoted, there's an anxiety of now you've got to assert yourself, you almost overcompensate because you don't want to be taken advantage of?
I think that it's, you know, it's a different challenge for some women, and they just think that in order to get there, you have to be a total bitch.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are treated like you're better than when you're in that group. You've been in management, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that I don't fuck with people like that at all. You know who one of my favorite people of all time, who I think still works in car sales, is Tolentino. Jeff Tolentino. His birthday is very close to mine. Always loved him. I think, and I do think he still slings cars. Mark Grandy's a legend. David Barr, legend. Like
David Barr.
Yeah.
He and I still text. He just had a birthday recently too.
He did. Yeah, I saw that. But yeah.
He and I go back and forth, and we text the most obscene things to each other. And like he sent me one time a picture, and it's like a close up of his toe, but his dong is hanging out of his boxers, and he says, "Hey, does this look infected?" And like the first thing you see is the toe, but then you look back, he's got his dong hanging out.
Dude, so that's great.
We would quote so many movies and so many stupid things in the car sales. I mean, now granted, like Mike Bond was awesome. I had two assistant managers at car sales, Mike Bond and David Barr, both totally different personalities, but both totally fun, awesome people.
Yeah.
Dave Barr was always funny. Tolentino. Did you ever meet Leo Diaz?
No, I don't think so.
And Earl Mercado?
Yes, Earl, yes.
Okay, so Earl and Leo were were two of my best car sales employees.
Really? And Earl has like 20 kids, man.
Yeah,
he has a lot of kids. He's like a Lolo now. Like, isn't he a grandpa now? He's great. Yeah.
He and Leo, two of my favorite people on the planet, two of my favorite employees of all time, hated each other. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, really it was like vinegar and baking soda. It was like, okay, yeah, these are two personalities that if you mix them, yes, it's going to be a problem. Because Leo is very.
If you mix them, it's not the recipe for crack. It's the opposite.
It's recipe for nitroglycerin. Boom, your meth lab is going to explode with this combo. But they were great. But it was great for competition. But okay, so like we hired Leo directly into car sales, whereas Errol came from rental. And I do think what's her face was pissed at me for taking him, but he was great. He loved it. He sold 20 cars his first month there. Now, granted,
that's great.
18 of them were
to his family.
18 was to his cousins, but still. No, but it was great. But like he was awesome. I mean, he still is awesome. Great guy. He was
very
great sales.
Very personable.
Yes. And he had that way about him. He had that very, building the rapport.
Yes.
And Leo also did, but Leo was good with the real, like the tough customers.
Okay.
Like he wasn't afraid to go, listen, asshole, like this, that's trade value, not market value. Like he got into an argument. He got into a yelling match with a customer.
Damn, that's awesome.
And sold him. Like got an argument.
That's real respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I liked is that like Leo would call bullshit out and then he would close the guy. But the thing was that like Earl was coming off of a 20 car month, and Leo just got hired, but Leo had tons of sales. Like he had like global sales experience.
Okay.
And so Errol was kind of like the big sales guy. And then when it started, the competition started, there was going back and forth, and they would talk a little smack to each other, and it got heated till one time we had to have an intervention. But both those guys, they're my boys. I love those guys.
Dope.
And Jeff is such a sweet guy too. Jeff, how can you Jeff
I do
Tolentino
not love him.
you just smile, that smile, like,
Yeah.
hey, okay, I'm buying whatever you're selling.
Yeah, it was a really good time. It was a good time in my life. It was really fun. Like just the 9 to 5 was fun.
Yeah, Carlos Oliva was the first person to show me 2 girls in 1 cup.
Someone at work showed me that too. But it was a different job. It was a
Oh,
guy.
I was gonna
and
say,
he's like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "Are you sure?" Carlos is like always writing the inappropriate, right? It's just like he's so great though. I had a lot of fun with him too in the branches. But it's so funny. I was in another job. I was selling insurance. And I was in an office and this guy couldn't believe I didn't know it. And he tried to talk me out of it, and I was like, no, I want to know. And now it's like, once you've seen 2 Girls, 1 Cup, I mean, it's even referenced on Family Guy. Stewie references in an episode, but it's your life has changed forever. You can never go back. It's like Nam.
It is.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But yeah, he pulls me into remarketing.
Dude, that's fucking hilarious. That's a great story.
That's the stuff that we would do. Like we would. Do you remember Natalie? She was on our car sales team for a while.
Yes, yes and no. Like I don't. Yes, I know who she is, but I never like worked directly with her. Well, but yes,
we this was right around the time the movie Waiting came out. And in Waiting, they played the game where they would like show their genitals to each other and trick each other. So we would do stuff like we wouldn't show our genitals to each other, God forbid, but like we would like do stuff like Natalie one time, like we had the spool of string for the balloons, and when it was empty, it was this cone. So Natalie puts it down by her crotch, and she turns to us. She goes, "Hey, Aaron." She turns around, and she's got this big cone sticking out of her crotch, and I'm just dying. Like I'm coming up being Mr. Like, hey, how am I going to help my car sales team today? And I turn around, and she's got this thing, and I'm just dying.
Dude, and it was okay then. Like now we would be fired immediately.
Oh, big.
And I get recruited all the time just because my job is it's just a weird niche, right? You have to be licensed, right? And for me, it's like, God, I can be inappropriate now. Like I've been there for 10 years. I don't care if I'll make an extra 10 racks at another company. I don't want to be appropriate.
Yes.
I want to be authentic Sarah all the time.
It's interesting too, that you and I both have come to a point where we realize that there's more to a job than the money. Granted, the money is great. The money is definitely a reason, but there's so much more to it. Like, going from car sales manager to teacher is a huge drop, but it's so rewarding in other ways.
Yeah. Are you much happier now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's good.
I have a lot of frustrations with the education system. There's a lot of stuff that needs to really radically change. Part of it is they're really taking away a lot of autonomy from teachers and putting a lot of stuff kind of from federal and stuff coming down. There's a lot of
teaching to the test versus
and that's
stuff like that.
And instead of really, because our job our job is to prepare these kids for the future, prepare them for adulthood. And
that is our job as parents.
Yes.
And like that has been lost in the last 10 years. It's like, what is going on?
There's no app for parenting.
No. And
you can't parent like this.
It's so crazy. It's my youngest is in middle school. I know all of the gossip. I know everything that's going on, but it's like, I have to make sure that I am available when she walks in. Cause I still work from home after COVID. Thank God. And I cannot even tell you, having kids at home during COVID, what a nightmare. I want them to go to fucking school.
Yeah.
It was just really lit. And my son, his mental health went to shit during COVID, and it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in 20 years, because there's a whole generation that they're going to be fucked up from that. Yeah. And, everyone has anxiety now, right? Everyone. And so I have I try to tell my kids, like, having a normal amount of anxiety is good and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an option for me. Like, I remember thinking, God, when I was a teenager, I definitely had anxiety, but I grew up in a house where if I got in a fight and I got my ass whooped, I get my ass kicked at home by my mom. Like,
Yeah.
my mom was so, right? It's like, and now it's like, oh, you have anxiety, let me drop you off at school. And so for me, I'm always kind of trying to balance, like, gosh, like I recognize, because I'm old school, right? I'm like the last of that generation. It's like, no, I'm preparing them. It's not my job to coddle them, but it's like,
Yeah.
I have to also, it's more acceptable now, right? People are more conscious of stuff, and we have to be mindful, and there's a balance. But it wasn't even an option, like I said, for years, because if you were either like completely batshit crazy and locked up in an institution.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, no, everyone here, it's like, no, I can't even tell you anyone that's not on an anxiety med or in counseling or something.
It's a double-edged sword, because it's like, on one hand, it's great that we've made so much progress in understanding mental health.
Yes.
But I feel like on the other side, like there's also the other side of it is, I think a lot of cases we're overdiagnosing.
Yes.
And I think we're in our, it's kind of like, you and I, when we were little, the belt came out, or, we got our butts whooped.
The wooden spoon.
The wooden spoon. Yes. My mom got a wooden paddle. She bought a wooden paddle the day after she spanked me with her hand and popped a blood vessel. And
damn.
So she had to.
Dude, our parents are gangsters. Like, what the fuck? I would never. I mean, that I threaten my kids all the time. I tell them, like, I will punch you with a closed fist, and they're just like, they laugh. But it's like, you can't do that shit now.
No.
But now we know, but we had the fear of God literally beat into us. So we just didn't. Yeah, I don't know. Like, we were more respectful. You want to do shrooms? Go on. Don't do it at home. Leave the house like a normal fucking teenager. But now these days, it's like, if I come out at 7 a.m. to start work and my 20-year-old's laying on the floor on his back still awake, I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Come on.
Yeah. What are you doing here, dude? I would never. So it's almost like the pendulum has swung the other way. It's almost like we're coddling a little bit too much, and not just the kids. I think adults too are being coddled now. It's almost like,
it's true.
It's a shame, because there are a lot of folks out there with true mental challenges that really need assistance. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I'm an advocate for medication when appropriate, when properly diagnosed. I do think there are times where there are some docs that just go, here, just shut up and take these pills. Whereas there's good need for that. Do you think, though, that do you think maybe we are overdiagnosing, or do you think we've become weaker, or have less coping skills in society, or is this something that is this just kind of comes with understanding mental health?
I think that we're coddling an entire generation. I really struggled. So, well, I don't think he'll mind that I'm sharing his story. But my son, for example, he was a superstar athlete, and he could have gone on to play at the minimum Division II football if he wanted to. COVID fucked him up. He decided his senior year he didn't want to play anymore. I'm like the overbearing football mom, so it was very hard for me. But I had to support him, right, in his mental health. And I was like, okay, that's okay. Once it becomes not fun for you anymore, that's fine. But then as a mom, I'm like, this kid is on TikTok self-diagnosing, right?
Yes.
And so I'm just like, you're woke. You have TikTok, right? It's like, I look at him and I'm like, here's a kid who, did I know growing up he was ADD? Yeah, sure, probably. But he skated through academically. He was okay. He got through. Sure, he got some referrals, but this was a kid who got in trouble on the yard. He was handsome. He was athletic. He was charming. School came easy to him. So was I shocked when he was, diagnosed with ADD at 17? No, of course I wasn't. But he's so radical. He refuses to play the game of life the way, that I have to play. And so I respect that in some ways, right? And then in other ways, I'm like, yeah, but you're going to live with me forever. Like, what are you doing? Right. So I coddle him and I make it easier. I gave him a year or two off. I said, "Hey, I'll let you just kind of do your thing, and no, you don't need to know what exactly you want to do when you're 18 or 19." I mean, shit,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know until I mean, I still sometimes I'm like, "What am I doing?" But yeah, you have everyone's neurodivergent. Everyone has intrusive thoughts, and it's just like it's just this. Yes, I just completely agree. It's a double-edged sword. With the education, that's great, but like me talking about dating, I know why I'm toxic. My family had a toxic intervention with me a month ago. Okay,
All
like
right.
I know that just because I'm conscious of it and discuss it with my counselor doesn't mean I'm changing my behavior.
Right.
So for me personally, something that I had to learn was that if I'm going to get my life in control, my mental health has to be in control. So for
Yes.
me, like, right, like I have been on antidepressants since my husband passed. Now you would look at that and be like, that's wild, right? Because I'm just like, but I almost feel a responsibility now. And as you get older, stuff changes.
Mm-hmm.
I am a person with contagious energy. So right? So it's like, right, let's get fired up. So when I was a functioning depressed person and I would go to work and do what I had to do because that was ingrained in me, right? We didn't have a choice by our parents.
Yeah.
But then like I wasn't being a great mom. So for me, if I have to take Lexapro every day, that's fine. It's not something I lead with, but it's not something that I'm ashamed of. If your fucking knee hurts, go to physical therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not everyone needs to. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like just
Yeah.
because I have a day where it's like, how am I almost 50 years old, still get my period, hate myself, and then I'm like, oh, I got my period. Like I'm not crazy. It's like there's also certain other things like Sarah.
Yeah.
Wake up, right?
Yeah.
I was with my best friend at a casino last weekend, and I joke around that I'm like her animal support person. I'm like her golden retriever. Okay, she's very shy, a little socially awkward until she's comfortable, and I go around with her and do everything. So she jokes that she's having these intrusive thoughts. So we're sitting like in a casino, and she said, "I'm having an intrusive thought," and I'm like, "Honey, it's the edible, but please tell me what your intrusive thought is." Right? So she goes like, "I just think someone's going to come in right here and shoot it up." And I literally look at her and I'm like, "Bitch, you are fucking crazy." Like my intrusive thought is like that I'm not going to win on this next machine. Do you know
I'm going to
what I mean?
accidentally knock all my chips onto the
Exactly.
thing, and they think I went all in. I'm like, no.
So that's like there are levels to this shit, right?
Yeah.
And so just like it's like TikTok to me sometimes, like I had to buckle and get one because I wanted real news. I wanted to see real time happenings that are happening around the world, and I don't want to see it through the lens of the right or the left, right? I don't even want to get into that shit.
Oh.
But it's like real time shit that's happening on the globe. As a responsible, educated, conscious person, I need to know like morally and like all of that stuff, right? But TikTok is out here having all of us thinking we're fucking nuts. No, we're not. We're human, and part of like the human experience are the ups and downs. And so so now we have this entire generation of I can't work, I have anxiety. No,
I need a mental health day. Now there's some job, like the jobs that really require mental health days, they don't give mental health days, like
teachers,
or
correctional officers,
exactly, or cops. Hey, I need a mental health day. You need a mental health month.
Yeah.
I think that's that's something I think that we need to really that forget about defund the police. We need to really think about mental health and really have follow-up training and just like really just hey, listen, are you okay? Because you're basically in NOM every day of your job.
It's like the NFL. Like you should have a window of time and era, right? Like I was talking about earlier, a chapter of your life where you do it, and then you've got to retire because that shit. It's like you put in your years, you get your GI Bill because that is crazy. I mean, and not cops are like the biggest organized crime in our country, right? And so it's like you've got talk about corporate and all of that shit coupled with everything you're dealing with. I mean, and I am in Oregon. I'm in a suburb of Portland. So like, I mean, it is extreme out here. And so I'm like, you know, the older I get, you know, I don't have enough money to be a Republican. That's my joke. But I'm like, am I going to vote for Kennedy just because he's Irish Catholic? Absolutely. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but it's just like, it's so crazy to me. It's just like, there has to be the balance, right? There has
Yeah.
to be the connection. And I know as we get older, right, we probably go a little in the middle, right? And we know we're getting older because we're more aware of that bridge that needs to be gap between the generations.
Hmm.
And I'm just thankful that they're like normal, cool people like you to
Thank you.
do that. You know what I mean? Because that
Hmm.
is like, you guys too should probably only do so many years. You know, if you've ever told, have you ever told a student to take their jacket off because you're hot? Like that's the shit I remember teachers like trying to hit me.
Yeah. I haven't, I certainly do that. But what is interesting though is my sarcasm and like I have a good enough rapport. We have a good community. Even the kids that are off their rockers, they still love the class, and so they're invested in it.
Yeah.
But it's like I do have kind of a sarcasm that I can talk to them a way that like they know they can't sass me because
Yes.
you know, and it's and I don't now I do have the you will sit down. I do have that voice.
Okay.
That comes from military school. I do have that voice, and I'll do that. I'll do that when like there was one time where they had a food fight, and I lined them up a wall, and I said, "You will not disrespect our classroom." Like that. I have that, but then I've also got like the individual. Like I'll go like you know, you've got to have a quick wit because they'll eat you alive. If they smell fear, they got you. And you know, but if you get but if you can challenge them wit to wit, you know, and they'll like and one of the coolest things I did was this kid that thought he was just really, he thought he was the shit. You know, everybody was talking, and he was talking about how he's got all these rhymes and these raps, and he's got these bars and stuff, and he was talking, and we're going, and I was trying to get it, like, but he would always tune out during language arts and creative writing. And I said, this is, you're saying you've got all these bars, but creative writing, I mean, poetry is rap, you know, poetry is lyrics. And he goes, and he's just trying to be all cool. And I said, all right, let's freestyle. Let's do a rap battle. And we went toe to toe, and I owned him in the front of the class. And I had to, and it got to a point where he was actually getting teared up. And I said, all right, listen, let's switch it. I said, no, we're going to collaborate.
He's literally fucking 8 years old.
Yeah,
do you let him win?
We switched it. We turned into a collaboration. We did it. I said, I could tell he was starting to get visibly upset.
That's a teachable moment for everyone involved.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, to me too. I was like, okay, let's switch it up. Because he got to sample me, and like what I was doing, and then I said, okay, let's collaborate. Now we're gonna be like Dre and Tupac.
Yeah.
And they're like, who? That. And I was like, don't say that.
We're gonna
don't say who.
We're gonna be like Migos.
Right. Yeah.
Oh. No, it's my job as a mom. Like all of my kids, even when they were like 5, if you ask them what's my favorite word, they're gonna fucking yell bitch. Like the kids know in this house. They also know that if I'm in the living room and I'm listening to Too Short or 40, I'm drunk. Like it doesn't happen a lot, but if they come home, they're like, okay, mom's partying, because it's like I don't want to get drunk and watch a movie. I want to get drunk and dance to E40.
And what's hyphy, Mom? What's
they know. When they did the I don't know if you watched, but during COVID they had the verses, and they had E40 plus Too Short. Did you see that at all?
I missed that.
You need to watch it.
Jeez.
So it's so funny because E40 gets just drunk. So he gets looser as it goes on, and then he starts dancing, and then there were all these gifs and memes of him dancing because, you know, he just does whatever. Meanwhile, Too Short is just, you know, getting high on stage, and it was just so great. But like even before they came out, they're just playing like all these Bay classics, and I'm telling my kids, come out, get a 40, like let's drink. And my kids are just and my kids are just like, they think I'm so cringe. And I'm like, listen, I am a fucking cool mom. Like, are you kidding me?
You have no idea. Yeah, right?
I'm like, I'm not the mom wearing the Winnie the Pooh zip up t-shirt dropping you off, and I'm like not in the PT. I'm like the cool mom, the funny mom. And it's funny, I was telling my youngest yesterday, I said, Ruby, listen, I might be a little overprotective. And I said, and I might go in my room at 7 p.m. and lock the door every night because I'm done with all you motherfuckers, right? And it might have been like I was running a group home during COVID with all the animals and the kids. But I said, I can guarantee you that we laugh in this household.
Mm-hmm.
And as a family, like you laugh with me more than your friends laugh with their parents. And honestly, that's all.
Yes.
That's all I want. I want you to have amazing self-esteem, right? As a daughter, so you don't turn into a whore. I want you to be a critical thinker, and I want you to laugh and like enjoy, live, laugh, love, you know? And then we had our moment. She took
stay off the pole.
Yeah, she took her fucking Taco Bell box and went in her room. That was it.
Nice.
I said, God, Sarah, you're winning at life.
You're a rock star. No, you are the cool mom. Fired up. Are we fired up? We're fired up. Fired up.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. So where we can find the WID-HOES on Spotify?
Yeah, we're only on Spotify right now. We need to level up and do this. So I'm going to have to look into this to do a little, would be great. So I don't know. I will email you or we'll talk after this because this is great. But yeah, WID-HOES is on Spotify. It's just, there's only a few episodes, but it's really great. We just talk about being young widows. And then, like I said, you know, we several jokes about the 80s and 90s. We're both very 90s, being hot, fat chicks, dating adventures, and then just keeping it real, just like life struggles and stuff. And mental health is a huge part of that. So it has been such a joy. Thank you for having me. It is always fun to be fired up with you. Your energy is great and infectious, and I miss you. So that's great.
I miss you too. I gotta bring Deb out to the West Coast sometime, and we gotta do the tour. And since you're you're in Oregon now, or
in the Great Pacific Northwest.
Woo, fun!
So we'll go to some strip clubs. It'll be fun. We'll get fired up.
We'll get fired up. Woo!
Man.
I might have to get on stage and
happening. At the very minimum, we will karaoke at. You know what? We can do karaoke. I'm always Pac, but you can do Dre. We can do America's Most Wanted.
Oh, there we go. I'll be Snoop. I'll be Snoop.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right, my friend.
Awesome stuff. Hey, I might have to get the WID-HOES back on together, and we'll just do a whole segment just about being a WID-HOE.
Yeah, I got a lot of shit. I went to Zumba today with her, and I got shit for branching out. But I said, hey, man, this is like an old friend of mine. So yeah, next time we'll bring her on. She's here for it.
Absolutely.
Can we do dabs on camera?
Absolutely.
Okay, then that's perfect. That'll be great.
Good stuff. My
friend. Thanks for having
Sarah,
me.
Thanks so much. Everybody, check out WID-HOES. Go to Spotify, and you're definitely gonna be. It's gonna be. It's a party. You're gonna have a lot of fun, but also learn a lot about mental health as well. On behalf of Sara Fired Up Foss, I am Aaron, aka Mind Runner, and I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace out.
Always remember, you are not alone. Catch full episodes every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern